Hey everyone, what's going on? In this video, I'm going to talk about the scripted no-hitter that was thrown by the Seattle Mariners pitcher James Paxton on May 8th. And if you're thinking to yourself, scripted, what does that mean? Please check out the links in the description and it will explain more of what I'm talking about and why I am talking about it. But our sports leagues are scripted every single day with what is called gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words and phrases. Our mainstream media is also coded with this system. Also our told history, many other things throughout the world are all coded with this system. And it stems back to ancient knowledge, and there's people who are using it to rule over us. So check out the links in the description. But right away, what I noticed with this when I was reading the story was that his pitch, the final pitch of the game, was a 99-mile-an-hour fastball. 99. And it was also the 99th pitch. So he finished the no-hitter on his 99th pitch, and it was a 99-mile-per-hour fastball. And the big deal with him was that he was the first Canadian ever to toss a no-hitter in Canada. And in gematria, the word Canadian equals 99. So he ends it on his 99th pitch. That was 99 miles an hour. And the word Canadian equals 99. He also, the last guy to throw a no-hitter, the last Canadian to throw a no-hitter, it was this guy, Dick Fowler, who did it on 9/9 of 1945. What are the odds, 9/9 of 1945, Canadian equals 99. I also pointed out that the Seattle Mariners, they call them the M's sometimes. The letter M equals 13, it's the 13th letter. Also, if you write out M's, it equals 13 in reverse reduction. And if you write out 13 as a word, it equals 99. And the guy who caught the final out of the game, or he caught the ground out and threw it to first, was, well, I wrote in the wrong name here, but it's Kyle Seagler, and he's exactly 1 year, 3 days older than James Paxton, right? The 13 number, 13 equals 99. What else stuck out to me is that James Paxton in satanic gematria, his name equals 523. Let me find it here. His name equals 523 in satanic gematria. And the reason that's important is because 523 is the 99th prime number. So, the odds. All of this 99 going on. Donald Trump also equals 523 in satanic. And the guy that he got the last out against, his name was Josh Donaldson, which I thought was interesting as well. Another thing that really stuck out was the last Canadian to get the no-hitter. His name was Dick Fowler, and he was from the Philadelphia Athletics, which is interesting because if you recall, James Paxton was also the guy who had the bald eagle land on him on April 5th this year during the Mariners-Twins game, or just before the Mariners-Twins game. The bald eagle lands on him just after the Eagles win the Super Bowl and the Stoneman Douglas Eagles High School shooting and the Falcon Heavy launch that was synced up to the Eagle landing on the moon. Even the Eagle that landed on James Paxton, the Eagle's name was Challenger, reminding us of Apollo 17 and the lunar module named Challenger that landed on the moon. So Dick Fowler, a fowl is a bird, right? Think about it. And then he does this no-hitter against the Blue Jays. Yet again, another bird. Interesting. And what sticks out in regards to the Eagle landing on him during the Twins game, the Twins are a team I was documenting a whole lot about last year. And I was talking about how they were connected to the New York Yankees, and possibly it was something either to do with the Super Bowl that was held in Minnesota and the Twin Cities, or Possibly it's something to do with New York because of the Twin Towers. And lo and behold, the Minnesota Twins made the wild card game when they played the Yankees, and the score was even 8-4. And a big deal I was talking about was how it was connected to the Jesuits, and the word Jesuit equals 84, and so does, I believe, Minnesota Twins, and reverse reduced equals 84. And yet again this year, I feel like it's connected to something that is involved with New York, whether it's for the Yankees to be in the World Series again this year, or if it's something to do with a new 9/11 type event, which seems like that's what they're coding a lot of this to. I'm going to make another video after this to make it a little shorter, but there's the reason that Ichiro Suzuki came out with talking about a text from, he didn't know who Tom Brady was because Suzuki came to the Mariners. That was his first year of the major leagues or whatever. He came to the Mariners and 2001, and that was the year that they had the 116 wins, and then the Yankees upset them right after 9/11, and then Tom Brady came out of nowhere and wins the Super Bowl. You know, his first game was against the New York Jets. Think about that in regards to 9/11 and the airplanes. And then just think about the airplanes and Boeing being in Seattle. So there's a whole lot more. I'm gonna make a whole separate video, but just wanted to point that out. I really think the Mariner stuff they're connecting it to a new 9/11 type event. Even George Bush's mom just died, or George Bush's wife, whatever, but George Bush was the president during 9/11, and a whole lot of 68 connections. Even the Yankees are going to play the Mets this year on 6/8, the Subway Series that I've been talking about, how it's connected to San Francisco. So anyway, notice that this no-hitter came 183 days after James Paxton's birthday. 183. And also the score of the game was 5-0. These are both Minnesota Twins numbers. Minnesota Twins equal 183 in reverse, and the word just Twins equals 50 in reverse. So this was 183 days after his birthday. And remember, the Eagle landed on him at the Twins game as well. And there's also 183 days with the end date before his next birthday. So they want you to see 183 in Minnesota Twins. Twins equal 50, Twin Cities equal 50, Challenger equals 50, the name of the bird who landed on him. Bald Eagle equals 50 in gematria. All of the Super Bowl coding that I was talking about before Super Bowl 52 happened, I kept talking about how it was connected to what I was saying in 2015 with Philadelphia and how it was connected to Super Bowl 50, right? So, and then the Eagles win. Let's go back and look at this old post of James Paxton here. So, I mean, look at this. The bird lands on him, bald eagle attack. He wears number 65. Philadelphia equals 65. The Eagles, you know, just won the Super Bowl. The word bald eagle in Jewish gematria equals 65. His nickname is Big Maple. That equals 65, just like the number that he wears. The same day that happened, the Philadelphia Phillies beat the Marlins 5-0 even. They told us it was 38 degrees at that game, 38. The word eagle equals 38. LII equals 38. 52 equals 38. It was Super Bowl 52. Minnesota equals 38, also 52. Big Maple, the small way, equals 38. Super Bowl LII equals 163, which is the 38th prime. Super Bowl was played in US Bank Stadium, that equals 38. And then the Eagle lands on him after the Eagles win the Super Bowl, and they tell us it was 38 degrees. That Eagle landing on him was also 150 50 days after his birthday, Philadelphia Eagles equal 150. World Series equals 150 in reverse. It was 60 days after the Super Bowl. James Paxton equals 60. Minnesota Twins equals 60. It was the home opener that equals 60. Donald Trump equals 60. Talked about making America great again, but the eagle isn't cooperating, something to do with a fake terrorist attack that possibly they'd give us. It was also Pope Francis's 5th year and 23rd day as being the Pope. And remember, Donald Trump equals 523. Went to a Jesuit university. Pope Francis, the first Jesuit Pope. James Paxton, 523. I talked about Randy Johnson hitting the bird. That video is on Facebook a whole bunch. It wasn't when he was with the Mariners, but still interesting. And also interesting because Randy Johnson was on the Arizona Diamondbacks, who beat the New York Yankees in 2001 after they upset the Seattle Mariners, right? And yeah, Randy Johnson won the World Series that year. Also, in regards to the Eagle landing on the moon, think about that in regards to the Cold War, right? The space race and Russia. Cold War equals 321. Seattle also equals 321. And this is a big number I was talking about with the Jesuits and the space theme and whatever else last year. So I was talking a whole lot about the Houston Rockets last year as well. So if the Houston Rockets make the World Series, it makes me wonder if what I was talking about last year will happen. Possibly we'll get the Twins in the World Series, or possibly it's connected to the Yankees being in the World Series. I really think it's for the Yankees to be in the World Series. I really think there's a whole lot of stuff that's pointing to the Yankees to be in the World Series, but I don't know, it's an ongoing process. I got to figure out more of what the true theme is. But if the Rockets win, I know that it is connected to what I was saying last year. All summer I was talking about this Twins theme and how it was interrelated into a whole bunch of other things. So I pointed out too, the Eagles name was Challenger, and Challenger was the lunar module on Apollo 17, which sticks out because Apollo 17 was the last mission to the moon, and Apollo 11 was the first one. So the Eagle landed on the moon, and then the Challenger was, the last thing to land on the moon, supposedly. Also, if you read out James Paxton's full name, James Alston Paxton equals 57. Just like the word moon, just like national anthem that was really important in the NFL season. World Series equals 57. Eugene Cernan died 57 days before his birthday in 2017. He was the last guy to walk on the moon, the guy that was on Apollo 17. Talked about him last year, and then he died like a month later. And John Glenn died as well. Like John Glenn died like a week or two after I talked about Neil Armstrong and Eugene Cernan being the first and the last guys to walk on the moon. Then John Glenn dies, and then a month later, Eugene Cernan dies. It was also interesting to me because Apollo 17, it launched on December 7th of 1972. And December 7th, of course, also the same day as the Pearl Harbor attack. And think about the Hawaii earthquake that we got. We also had the North Korean missile scare 111 days before that Hawaii earthquake. And the word Hawaii equals 111. That was synced up to the moon. I just made a video on that. I'll leave in the description. And it was all about the moon. Derek even told me that in Hebrew gematria, the word eclipse equals 156, which was a big thing I was talking about in regards to that, the previous video. But, so right, Apollo 17 launches on the anniversary of Pearl Harbor, And there was a bunch of 17 in Stoneman Douglas, the Stoneman Douglas Eagle shooting, the 17 victims, and they kept doing stuff with the 17-year-old and just all kinds of stuff with 17. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but the Eagle landing on James Paxton was 17 weeks after the anniversary of Apollo 17 and also Pearl Harbor. And Apollo 17 landed in the Pacific Ocean at 17 degrees south. This story happened on 4/5, and the Stoneman Douglas shooting happened on Valentine's, which is the 45th day of the year. Anyway, I want to go back to this other post, this newer post, but I just wanted to show some of the examples with the Eagle landing on him and how it was coded by the numbers. I also pointed out that at Target Field, where the Minnesota Twins play, I noticed that the band, the Eagles, are going to be playing there on June 30th this year, but look where their tour ends. It ends on July 28th in Philadelphia, right? So just interesting. The tour ends in Philadelphia. The Eagles are back on, June 30th. June 30th, I think, was a date that I talked about the New York Yankees last year because of the movie Despicable Me 3. So, interesting, So if you've been following my videos and my blog, I've been talking about earthquakes like no other, just like crazy. Earthquake, 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 and how it's connected to some bridge collapse and also to the Pope because the word pontiff means bridge builder and a bunch more. Just check out some of my old stuff. But the word, if you write out no hitter, it equals 107, just like Seattle, just like earthquake. I wrote earthquakes, but earthquake equals 107. I wrote this blog post pretty fast, I guess. But earthquake 107, just like Seattle, just like no hitter. The word volcano equals 107. And then, we got the 6.9 earthquake in Hawaii. I've been talking about how it's really connected to San Francisco and Philadelphia. And them two cities have an interrelated relationship. Just think about it even. The Athletics used to be from Philadelphia. Now they play in Oakland in the San Francisco Bay. The Golden State Warriors play in the San Francisco Bay. They used to be the Philadelphia Warriors. Lots of interrelatedness between them two cities. And Pope Francis even finished his visit to the United States in Philadelphia, and he's named after St. Francis of Assisi, that San Francisco was also named after, the guy who received the first stigmata. Anyway, the game today, I noticed that the Mariners became 20, or the game yesterday on May 8th, the no-hitter game, the Mariners became 20-14, which was interesting because in 2014, the Giants, San Francisco Giants, won the World Series. And the Blue Jays became 19-17, which is interesting because in 1917, the Giants, who were from New York, were also in the World Series. So just thought that was interesting. And in 1989, we had the Earthquake World Series of San Francisco versus Oakland. So just interesting. Possibly nothing on that, but it stuck out to me. Also, the score of 5-0 in regards to the Cubs and whatnot. In regards to the Twins, San Francisco also equals 50 in gematria, and they lost that same day, and their record was 19-17. Also, the word Canada equals 50 in Jewish gematria, and in the game where the Eagle landed on James Paxton, he only threw for 5.0 innings, right? Another 50. James Paxton equals 39 and 138. Canada equals 39 in reverse reduced and 138 in reverse. So the opposite of Canada. Canada also equals 24, just like the word Eagle. There was supposedly 24 men who have flown to the moon, and the no-hitter came exactly 24 weeks before the World Series, but also 168 days, which sticks out because New York City equals 168 in gematria. Also, New York Mets equal 168 in gematria. And if you remember in 2015, well, I shouldn't go on the spiel, but in 2015, the Cleveland Cavaliers lost in the NBA Finals. Cleveland Cavaliers equal 168, and they lost to Golden State that equals 122. And then later that year in the World Series, Kansas City, who equals 122, won, and they beat the New York Mets, who equal 168. And Pope Francis equals 122. And then that was the year that he visited the White House and came to America on his 923rd day as Pope and went to the White House at 9:23. At 9:23 at 9:23 in the morning. And LeBron James was in that movie Trainwreck. LeBron James equals 923. And there was a Philadelphia Trainwreck at 9:23 p.m. The movie Trainwreck starts off with Amy Schumer's character's 9 years old. The rest of the movie takes place 23 years later. It was all synced up, so. There was even a guy dressed like Pope Francis on 6/6 of 2015. 15, 1 plus 5 is 6, so a lot like 666. The guy dressed as Pope Francis who caught the home run ball of Salvador Perez. And then, the Royals go on to win the World Series, and Salvador Perez is the MVP. Anyway, this no-hitter also came 2 months, 12 days before the anniversary of the Eagle landing on the moon. Toronto Blue Jays equal 212. I also noticed that in Gematria and Sumerian Gematria, twins equal 510, and Challenger equals 510. And in regards to all of the North Korea stuff that I just documented was connected to the Hawaii earthquake and Hawaii volcano stuff, I documented about the number 510 and the North Korean president named, or the South Korean president named Moon Jae-in, who became the president of South Korea on 5/10 last year. And in Gematria, South Korea equals, or just Korea equals 510. I also talked about Season 5, Episode 10 of Family Guy, which the reason that I brought it up was because I was watching an episode of Family Guy, and it has the Pope in it, right? And Peter's dad hates Peter or whatever, and Peter kidnaps the Pope and brings him to the house so his dad will love him again, and he'll get his dad's recognition from the Pope or whatever. And his dad just so happens to his name is Francis, right? So there's an episode of Family Guy about the Pope, and the whole episode is about Peter's dad named Francis. And now we have Pope Francis being the Pope. But I pointed out that Peter's dad actually dies on an episode, Season 5, Episode 10. So his dad Francis dies on Season 5, Episode 10. And a lot of the stuff goes back to Pope Francis. So interesting, twins equal 510, Challenger equals 510. I pointed out maybe it is just for the Astros to be in the World Series again too. Just because it's seemingly connected to a bunch of the stuff I was talking about last year. Anyway, sorry. The no-hitter, it came 33 days after the Eagle landed on James Paxton. And in that game, the Mariners lost 2-4. And they became 3-3. They became 3-3. 33 days later, James Paxton throws a no-hitter. And they lost 2-4. The word Canada equals 24. Eagle equals 24. The anniversary of the Eagle landing on the moon to the beginning of the World Series this year is 3 months and 3 days. And it's also 95 days, which is interesting because the day the Eagle landed on him was the 95th day of the year. The word eclipse equals 33. I also pointed out just before the Eagle landed on him, The Mariners played San Francisco and they lost 10-1. Philadelphia equals 101, right? So it's the 114th World Series. The game after the Eagle landing, they won 11-4. You know, the 114th World Series. Minneapolis, Minnesota equals 114. San Francisco Giants equal 114. World War equals 114. Something significant to this year. Also put it up, Blue Jays equal 95. And the anniversary of the Eagle landing on the moon, 95 days before the World Series, the Eagle landed on him on the 95th day of the year. He throws a no-hitter against the Blue Jays at equal 95. The last guy that he struck out, or that he got the out one to get his no-hitter, was Josh Donaldson. That equals 150, just like World Series. I later pointed out some synchronicity that I had in regards to this, and I had synchronicity like literally all day long. It was just ridiculous how many times that the TV would say something just as I was reading it, or just as I was saying a word, the TV would say the exact same word. It happened so many times today, it wasn't even funny. And I didn't document all of the things because I didn't want to lose my train of thought and everything else. But just as I was on here reading, so I might as well see what happens. Right when I said that, Peter Griffin on the Star Wars Family Guy said something about might as well pee my pants, right? Right as I read might as well, he said might as well. And I thought, interesting, you know. And I never even looked more into it, but I should have. But while I was writing up this blog post, I stopped looking at the James Paxton stuff, and I started looking at some videos on Facebook about the lava flowing in Hawaii. And while I was watching it, Family Guy on the Star Wars thing even makes a joke about Tom Selleck. Like, Chris is supposed to be Luke Skywalker, and he calls out Tom Selleck, and then it goes to like Tom Selleck reading a book or something. And Tom Selleck was a big piece to what I was talking about with Hawaii after the Hawaii missile scare, right? I was talking about Family Guy, which is interestingly enough, I was talking about, I had some synchronicity with Family Guy, and he was on the TV show Hawaii, Magnum PI, that's set in Hawaii. And then for whatever the reason, whatever TV show I was watching, I looked up and the TV show even had Tom Selleck on it. And he said, Carol, and the only person that I know who lives in Hawaii, her last name is Carol. And it was some strange stuff. And I know I talked about that in some video. I'll try to find it and leave it in the description, but just interesting that I'm looking at Hawaii stuff and then they say Tom Selleck, you know? Tom Selleck equals 333, just like Philadelphia Eagles. Everything went back to 2015, which was the 333rd year of Philadelphia. I also had another post about the 72 Dolphins who won just after Apollo 17, and I talked about how it was connected to Apollo 17. And when the 72 Dolphins won the Super Bowl, it was the same day as Elvis in Hawaii, via satellite or whatever, right? And it was a big deal, Elvis in Hawaii, but Elvis was wearing a white American Eagle jumpsuit, American Eagle, right? And so just interesting, another connection to Hawaii that's connected to Apollo 17, which is the Challenger that landed on the moon. I also pointed out they brought back Roseanne. Roseanne lives on the big island in Hawaii where this earthquake and where the volcano stuff is going on. Roseanne lives there, so interesting they would bring that show back just before, you know, we get the big stuff going on with Hawaii. And on this Apollo 17 post that I did, I talked about, it was the whole story was about a 5.3 earthquake that was in Los Angeles, and earthquake equals 53 with the K exception. Los Angeles equals 53. And the only other time I documented about Hawaii in the past year was about the guy I know that owned the bank in the town I live in, and his grandson had lived in Hawaii, and he also fought in the Korean War. This guy fought in the Korean War, and he owned the bank uptown, which was really big to the Super Bowl. It was all about the stock market crash and kneeling during the national anthem. But the word bank equals 53, and that guy's name equaled 53, and he died 53 days before his birthday, and, North Korea equals 53, and Moon Jae-in, the South Korean president, born on 24/1, which is the 53rd prime number, and we're currently in the 241st year of the United States. Once again, so fitting for North Korea, right? 53. The Korean Wars came to, what they called the end of the Korean War in the year 1953. So I'm just going to leave the video here. Maybe I'll leave some links to my blog. I just feel like it makes more sense if you read the blog. I'm not really spot on with what I'm talking about because there's a lot going on in my brain, and I haven't been able to read through what I just wrote and then organize it. And then I just made a few other blog posts over here that really go with it, and I want to incorporate it, but it just doesn't seem to make that much sense right now. So I'm totally going to make this video about Ichiro and Tom Brady because that one's a lot more important than this one, but this one's interrelated into it. So hopefully that makes sense. I know there's a lot to it if you're brand new. You're probably not even listening. But if you just learn this and apply it for yourself, you'll understand everything I'm saying. You should, at least. Hopefully you will understand it. And I still need to make that video that explains gematria a little bit better, but eventually. So we'll see. I'm going to keep following this story because there's lots of Seattle Mariner stuff, but I'm positive it's connected to 2001 and 9/11. So have a good one. Peace.